Good morning, this is Madeline.
And this is Mike.
And we're reading the County Press and the Society News for Friday the 13th of January. First, the Society News. On Tuesday, the dolphins are swimming in Ryde at the waterside pool. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the dolphins, please call the Society first to notify us of your swimming ability. The Society Coffee Morning will be held this coming Wednesday, that's the 17th of January. Come and join us for a cup of coffee and a chat, and why not bring a friend along as well, as the coffee mornings are open to all. The Owls will also be meeting on Wednesday at 2 p.m. in Millbrook House. The speaker for this week's meeting will be from the RNLI. The group lasts approximately 45 minutes, which is then followed by tea or coffee and cake. The Knitters and Natterers will be meeting at Millbrook House this Thursday, the 18th of January, from 10:30 until 2. There is helpful knitting of all levels, coffee and chat, and readers that will entertain you in the afternoon. Please note transport may be available to some of the groups, but please call the Society first on 522205. And some other news. Please note there are some new Talking News wallets in circulation. These may be difficult to open as they may be a little stiff, but over time they will become easier to open. As from this week, the Talking News will be available to listen to via our website at www.iwsb.org.uk.
Now we have some scaffolding news which will be of interest to you, particularly if it's in your area. Scaffolding news is a list of known footway obstructions for works including scaffolding or hoarding. We are unable to include end dates as many are extended on a week-by-week basis. Also included are tables and chair permits that were issued this past week. The current scaffolds are 2 Trinity Road, Ventnor, 32 Melville Street, Ryde, the Watch House Lane, Cowes, 11A St John's Road, Sandown, 59 St Mary's Road, Cowes, 26 Nelson Street, Ryde, 37 Alfred Street East, Cowes, development site at Castle Street East, Cowes, Nippert Court, West Street, Newport, the Hare Centre, 13 and 14 High Street, Ryde, Napoleon's Landing, Esplanade, Sandown, 2A York Road, Sandown, Ace Shoe Repairs, 92 Pyle Street, Newport, Newport Minster, St Thomas's Square, Newport. Current hoardings are at 272 to 283 Arctic Road, Cowes, McDonald's, 93 to 94 St James's Street, Newport. New scaffolds are the Anchorage, Seafield Road, Seaview. Scaffold is on Rope Walk, due up the 24th of January. 35 New Street, Newport, due up 25th of January. 19 George Street, Ryde, due up 18th of January. A new tables and chairs permit is the Costa Coffee, 2324 High Street, Ryde. This week's In Touch. In Touch in this week's episode, the Canute is the latest development in refreshable multi-line braille and is demonstrated by Ed Rogers from Bristol Braille Technology. Sean Randall is a teacher at Worcester New College, where the Canute has been tested by students. Sean talks to Peter about its pros and cons. Amit Patel is totally blind and has fitted a small video camera to his guide dog Kika's harness. The footage has enabled him to witness the good and not so good behaviour of people with whom he comes into contact during the course of his travels.
And there's just one headline in the county press this week, and that's Towering Vision. A new multi-million-pound regeneration scheme for Newport Harbour, featuring a tower twice the height of Nelson's Column, could be the catalyst for saving the Isle of Wight Council's finances. A developer who has spent more than a year working on the plan aims to present it to the director of the authority's new regeneration unit. The 100-metre tower is planned for the site of the current Isle of Wight Council planning offices, for which the council currently has announced no disposal plan, overlooking the site of the Isle of Wight Festival stage. Peter Dale from Haven Street, who says he has been behind several smaller previous developments, claimed this week he had assembled a business consortium including all the investors needed to make the 150 million plan reality. All the Isle of Wight Council needs to do is to make land available, he said. The income it will generate will give it a new option, one that doesn't involve the council just watching its fortunes go downhill. I have made presentations to independent and conservative groups on the council and Visit Isle of Wight, and I have received the support of councillors Julie Jones-Evans and Matthew Price, who sit on the project's working group. The ambitious scheme includes a new River Medina road bridge, which would bypass Coppins Bridge, and flood defences, which Mr Dale says are essential to development receiving the green light because of other plans were stalled by flood risk. Other features include upgraded harbour facilities, including lock gates and repairs, one of the largest art, history and technology museums outside London, costing £25 million, a £50 million Medina Tower, incorporating shops, a restaurant, cafes, function rooms, conference suite and penthouse hotel rooms, 100 new business studios and offices, a waterside cafe bar area, up to 300 holiday and residential apartments, and 2 multi-storey car parks. The benefits to the island from the first stage of development will include more than 500 permanent jobs, between £7 to £10 million annual income for council services, and increased numbers of visitors by creating an all-year, all-weather tourist destination, said Mr Dale. This plan is sustainable and commercially financed, therefore no monetary contribution will be necessary from council funds other than at planning stages, said Mr Dale. One very important facet is ownership of the site remains with the Isle of Wight Council, so it can benefit as the landlord, using profits to support island services and further regeneration. Councillor Jones-Evans said, "I have always said Newport Harbour is the jewel in the crown and has been crying out for investment to realise its potential. This plan potentially gives the council the opportunity to create a first-class destination." Councillor Price said it was essential the council backed feasibility studies so the harbour could be realised as the valuable asset it should be. This major regeneration would encourage tourism and industry together and will provide huge employment opportunities. This scheme offers an entirely different set of options to other proposals. The future income generation this could bring will last for decades and would lead to other regeneration projects across the island finally becoming possible.
The deal gets closer. The complex legal hurdles before the 1,000 home penny feathers scheme can start are nearly overcome. The legal agreement needed before full planning permission for the controversial Pennyfeathers development is on the verge of being signed. 16 months after the principle of the development was agreed for nearly 1,000 homes at Smallbrook, the Isle of Wight Council and the developer say negotiations are proceeding well. A council spokesman said, "Planning consent has yet to be issued as negotiations with the applicant over the legal agreement are ongoing. Negotiations are progressing well. However, because of the complexity of the application, the process is taking time. The delay in issuing planning consent does not affect the expiry of the application, as any conditions only begin once planning consent is issued." Developer's agent Glenn Hepburn said he expected the agreement would be signed in February and some preparatory work could begin on site this year. Negotiations centre on the realistic phasing of when elements of the development, including its affordable housing, infrastructure and payments, can take place. The legal agreement covers multiple elements of the plan, including the £2.3 million the developer would pay into the local education budget, substantial sums for sport and the environment, creating a new community centre and relocating Westridge Garage. As part of the road improvement, the developer has bought 2 properties at Westridge Cross, which remain empty while a scheme is finalised with the council. And in addition to this information, there is a sketch drawing of the outline of the Isle of Wight with various developments indicated around the coastline. Approved applications are Atherfield Bay Holiday Camp near the main road at Bryston, Ash Lane Gunville, Near Place Road Cowes, Follyworks East Cowes, Woodside Bay Holiday Village Wootton, Near Upton Road Ryde, Harcourt Sands Holiday Park Ryde. A £128 plus 63-bed hotel is proposed for that site. Approved in principle is Pennyfeathers at Ryde, where we're looking at 904 units of accommodation. And then the pending applications are south of Westridge Farm, Ryde, which has an application for 80 units, near the Esplanade East Cowes for 53 units, near the River Medina again for 53 units, and finally near Rosemary Vineyard at Ryde with an application for 197 units.
Mainland Ops offer to ease strain on St Mary's. Island patients are set to be offered treatment in Southampton in the latest bid to ease pressure on St Mary's Hospital. All but urgent and emergency operations have been cancelled at the island's only hospital. Now the Isle of Wight NHS is working with Care UK and Southampton's NHS Treatment Centre to identify suitable patients who could receive inpatient treatment across the Solent. Isle of Wight NHS Head of Operational Performance, Sarah Haywood, said, "Patient care is a priority and the Trust is sorry for anyone who is experiencing a delay in receiving their operation. While we will be able to increase day surgery at St Mary's Hospital, a number of elective surgeries requiring a stay of 1 night or more may be achieved more quickly at the Southampton NHS Treatment Centre, reducing the delay for patients. Patients choosing to be treated in Southampton will have travel costs for the ferry and taxi to and fro from the centre, supported by the NHS Treatment Centre. The NHS said it would be contacting patients to offer them the chance to choose Southampton treatment."
An off-duty nurse saves collapsed neighbour. An Isle of Wight yachtsman who survived the tragic Fastnet race of 1979 says he owes his life to an off-duty nurse who found him unconscious on the pavement. Anthony Blake Sims, aged 77, of Gordon Road, Cowes, collapsed yards from his home after having a heart attack on December the 28th. He was found by off-duty nurse Chris Davis, also of Gordon Road, who performed CPR and kept Mr. Sims alive until paramedics arrived. Now he hopes to meet Mr. Davis to thank him. Mr. Sims, who is recovering in St Mary's Hospital and is awaiting open heart surgery in Portsmouth, told the county press he had no memory of what happened. He knew Mr. Davis by sight, but had never spoken to him. He said, "The last thing I remember was driving off the car ferry at Fishbourne after visiting my sister in Chichester for Christmas. The next thing, I woke up in hospital surrounded by medical staff. I have not really spoken to Chris before at all, but, of course, I would like to meet him. He saved my life." Mr. Davis, who works in HMP Isle of Wight as a nurse, was on his way to buy chips when he discovered Mr. Sims. He said, "As I went back along Gordon Road, I could see someone lying on the pavement. I thought there was something wrong. He was not breathing and had no pulse. I ran to my house, which was only 2 doors away, and asked my wife to call an ambulance, and then went back to Mr. Sims and commenced CPR. Mr. Davis continued CPR for around 10 minutes until a first responder arrived, who used defibrillator to shock Mr. Sims's heart and restored his pulse before he was taken to hospital. He said, "It was just pure luck I found him. I had gone out for chips, but the one at the corner of Victoria Road was closed, so I went right into town for them. If it had not been closed, I would have missed him."
Watertight deal for Whitelink. White Crystal has become the preferred supplier of bottled water for Isle of Wight ferry company Whitelink. The deal, announced this week, will see 80,000 bottles of water supplied to the company's 12 on-board and onshore shops this year. Whitelink said it was part of a commitment to use more local suppliers. Others include the Garlic Farm, Full Spread, the Isle of Wight Sweet Company and the Isle of Wight Biscuit Company. Whitelink Head of Business Operation, Sean Millwood, said, "There are so many first-class goods produced and supplied by island companies, and we are delighted to be offering our customers more and more opportunities to enjoy them. We are extremely pleased to be teaming up with White Crystal. Not only is theirs a quality, locally sourced product, we have been hugely impressed with the company itself and also its ethos. All of my office team are from the island, and so we knew all about White Crystal, but nevertheless we were surprised by how quickly this has happened. It just seems like a perfect fit. White Crystal's profits go towards supporting White Crystal's sister company, The Way Forward, a 24/7 support service for those living with physical and learning disabilities."
Hover Company says sorry over new craft. Hover travel boss Neil Chapman has apologised to Isle of Wight travellers after the Cross Solent firm was forced to take its new £10 million craft out of service. Just months after launching Solent Flyer and Island Flyer, which are to be withdrawn at separate times over the coming weeks for what the company has described as remedial and upgrade work. It means passengers will have to rely on a one craft service at times using the older Freedom 90 craft. The Board of Directors has confirmed it will be investing in the out-of-action Island Express to bring it into service in the near future. Mr. Chapman told the county press, "It would be fair to say to readers and to commuters the reliability of both these new aircraft is not where we want it to be, and that's why we've got to do the upgrade work. Looking at the reliability and speaking with our customers over the past 4 to 6 weeks, we've not been delivering a service I'm proud of. The problem has arisen from an array of technical and electrical faults, such as CCTV connectors not working or the craft not starting. One disgruntled commuter told the county press, "This morning the captain of Freedom 90 had the cheek to come on the radio and say at least we were better than southern trains." Such comparisons are childish and completely inappropriate to make commuters who are running out of excuses with their employers. The Hover Travel directors should all be ashamed. A fault with Island Flyer on Monday led to the cancellation of 6 services. The new design craft have come under scrutiny from passengers before, as previously reported. They were criticised for a rough ride with pitch and roll even during calm conditions. It was also reported passengers and crew suffered from seasickness while travelling on the new craft. However, Mr. Chapman said the previous complaints were unrelated to the current situation. He also stressed the problems were not serious design faults or flaws and would not affect the future viability of the craft or the security of the business. "Hindsight is a lovely thing," said Mr. Chapman. "In this 5-year project, we had always built in a significant buffer zone for dealing with this type of activity, because any new craft being implemented into a business would always take a period of time. It would be fair to say we have considerably overrun that." Until February the 28th, peak time crossings from Ryde to Portsmouth will be at 1/4 and 1/4 to the hour, and from Portsmouth to Ryde they will be on the hour and 1/2 the hour. For a full timetable, see www.hovertravel.co.uk.
Inquest opened into prison officer's death. An inquest into the death of prison officer Nick Medlin, who died on Christmas Day in Ventnor, was opened and adjourned at the Isle of Wight Coroner's Court on Tuesday. The court was told Mr. Medlin, 57, of South Street, Ventnor, was out with his wife and sons on Christmas Eve when he was assaulted outside the Rose Inn in Pier Street. During an alleged altercation, he hit his head on the concrete pavement. An ambulance was called, but he was pronounced dead outside the pub at 12:10 a.m. on Christmas Day. A post-mortem carried out at St Mary's Hospital on Boxing Day gave the cause of death as a head injury. Isle of Wight coroner Caroline Zumare passed her condolences to Mr Medlin's family and adjourned the inquest to July the 11th this year. She suspended the inquest because of the ongoing criminal proceedings. A man charged with killing Mr Medlin appeared before Portsmouth magistrates on December the 29th. Michael John Hudson is charged with manslaughter. He did not enter a plea. Mr Hudson, 32, of no fixed address, was remanded in custody and will appear at Winchester Crown Court on January the 23rd. 2 other men arrested on suspicion of murder have been bailed until April the 11th, pending further inquiries.
And as a slight follow-up to that, we hear that CCTV is the key to tackling town centre crime. Police and town councillors want to make Ventnor a safer place with better CCTV coverage, particularly outside pubs, following the death of a prison officer on Christmas Day. Nick Medlin, who worked at HMP IW, was attacked outside the Rose Inn in Pier Street in front of his family. After the incident, shocked Ventnor Town Council member, Councillor Stuart Blackmore, said CCTV would be considered amid growing concern among the town's residents and the business community. On Monday, at the Town Council's first meeting of 2017, Sergeant Richard Hindle of the South Wight Safer Neighbourhood team said officers were developing a strategy to address crime in the town in direct response to recent events. Although the amount of recorded crime in Ventnor has not been particularly high, it is the nature of the crimes that are causing more of a concern, said Sergeant Hindle. The statistics don't really reveal the problems in the town. We want to work more closely with the town council and the community to develop a strategy to improve the situation and better identify those responsible for crime. My colleagues and I are committed to maintaining a safe environment. We initially intend to use deployable CCTV cameras in the town, but on a temporary basis. The police will be undertaking a full review of licensed premises in Ventnor and in the surrounding area, particularly looking at their CCTV capability. I hope all licensed premises will soon have downloadable high-definition CCTV. It is massively beneficial to us in identifying people. There is no excuse for any licensed premises not to have it these days. Councillor Blackmore said funding CCTV in the town should not be an issue, as it costs Ventnor Golf Club, which he manages, £400 for 5 cameras. The town council agreed to discuss the matter at the next monthly meeting.
New bid to cut harbour costs. Options to cut the £112,000 cost of maintaining Ventnor Haven are being explored by the Isle of Wight Council. The authority, which has paid Ventnor's Cheetah Marine £72,580 a year since 2011 to clear seaweed from the harbour, has commissioned engineering consultant Royal Haskening to investigate cheaper options. It will carry out studies to see if the build-up of seaweed and sediment can be reduced. In addition to removing the seaweed, the smell of which previously blighted the town, Cheetah Marine also supervises harbour activities. Its responsibilities include cleaning the slipway and pontoons, inspecting moorings, and collecting dues from the craft using the haven. Cheetah Marine partner Sean Strevens welcomed the news, as removing the seaweed often cost the company more than it was paid. It would be great to lose the contract, to be honest. Removing 30,000 tonnes of seaweed is a massive task, and we would love the council to find a better solution to the problem. But I know the harbour and there isn't a better way, he said. A dredging company would charge between £300,000 and £400,000. We use the harbour, so it's in our interest to look after it. But if Ventnor goes back to stinking of seaweed, we would survive. Our business doesn't depend on it. It's the tourists who would be put off. The plans were due to be discussed by the council executive last night, that's Thursday evening. A report due to go out before members also revealed seaweed was being deposited over the harbour wall into the sea without a licence, which the council has now obtained. Ventnor Haven, leased to the Blake family for 125 years, lost £112,000 last year, while Newport Harbour lost £164,000. Calls to fill Ventnor Haven with concrete, however, were discounted at this week's meeting of the Isle of Wight Council Scrutiny Committee. Members said the money could be better spent elsewhere, but Deputy Leader Councillor Steve Stubbings said it would cost too much to renege on the leases.
And here there appears to be a follow-up to that report. Pump is the greenest way of shifting Haven's seaweed. With the stink of rotting seaweed pervading Ventnor, Cheetah Marine's Sean Strevens hit upon an ingenious solution. Having spent years battling to keep the stench under control after the haven was opened in 2003, using nets to dredge the harbour and organising contractors to dig the seaweed out with excavators and dumper trucks, the result was somewhat hit and miss. Outsourcing the challenge to a dredging company was dismissed as too expensive, and keen to develop a more economic and environmentally friendly solution, Sean eventually decided to take matters into his own hands. The hydrogen sulfide levels were getting dangerously high during the summer, and working in the haven with this type of gas was becoming a safety issue. We had to design a successful seaweed dredging system to solve the problem. Sean designed a boat with a 200 horsepower high-pressure hydraulic power pack, driving an underwater impeller pump, capable of pumping 100 cubic metres per hour of sand, seaweed and water. The pump head can be raised and lowered as the boat is manoeuvred around the harbour, clearing the seaweed. It was introduced in 2011 following trials. Sean said, "This method is by far the most economic and environmentally friendly way to solve this problem. The Council is looking at other ways to solve it, and we hope they can come up with a solution. We are keen not to have to work continuously to clear the seaweed."
Beach huts expected to be snapped up. Islanders looking to spend the summer enjoying one of the Isle of Wight's most beautiful spots have the chance to get their hands on new beach huts being leased by the council. Leases for 20 beach huts being built by the Isle of Wight Council at Colwell Bay have been made available, and the authority expects them to be snapped up quickly. The new huts will be in place from spring, and 10-year leases will cost £10,000. The huts will be painted in bold primary colours and measure 2.4 metres by 1.8 metres. Although there are hundreds of beach huts around the island that are privately owned, this is the first time the authority has provided beach huts for lease directly. Councillor Shirley Smart, Executive Member for Planning, Tourism, Recreation and Culture, said, "Island beach huts are a part of our beach life for summer and throughout the year. They are highly sought after, and we expect the leases to sell very quickly. I'm sure we'll have waiting lists before long. For details, call 821 000.
Wind farms mean big plans for Isle of Wight Company. Offshore wind farms are set to bring jobs and investment to the island, for one firm in particular. With several offshore developments in the pipeline, Island Company Seacat Services has taken on 20 new staff, invested £7 million in 2 new island-built boats, and moved to new headquarters at Mariners Way in Cowes. The Solent LEP contributed £75,000 towards the £500,000 cost of the move. The company, which has been working with island firm South Boats for 6 years and invested £42 million in new vessels during that time, specialises in transporting personnel and equipment to and from offshore sites. Its new headquarters has more office and storage space, with extensive equipment stores and workshop facilities. The company will launch 2 new boats in February and April, taking its fleet to 14 vessels. It expects to increase its workforce from 80 to more than 100 once the new boats enter service. Managing Director Ian Bayliss said, "While it has, to all intents and purposes, been business as usual at Seacat Services over the past few months, behind the scenes we have been gearing up for just what is likely to be the busiest period of offshore wind construction to date. In practice, that means not only upgrading the hardware that makes our logistical operations possible with our new facility, but also the software in the form of talented personnel who will play a crucial role in driving operations forward over the coming years. In doing so, we're delighted to demonstrate our ongoing commitment to creating opportunities for the community on the Isle of Wight. We are extremely grateful to the Solent LEP for the funding support that has helped us to make this happen." An open house week will be held prior to the launch of the first new boat, Seacat Enterprise, for people to tour the new headquarters and view the vessel.
Icy Lane will not be gritted, says Council. The Isle of Wight Council has poured cold water on residents' hopes a country lane leading to a school will be gritted during the winter freeze. After a car overturned in the Totland Lane, residents appealed for a range of safety improvements. The authority said it would consider a request for a blanket 20-mile-per-hour speed limit in Summer Lane and urged drivers to take care in the meantime. But a spokesman said the council, through its highways PFI contractor Island Roads, is unable to salt all roads on the island due to the extent of the highways network. All highway authorities are required to do all that is reasonably practicable to manage the highway network effectively to keep traffic moving, but this does not include a duty to remove the formation or accumulation of ice from the road. Under the PFI contract, Island Roads undertake a comprehensive winter treatment programme which covers all the island's key routes. However, all motorists are advised to drive according to the conditions and should be aware that the salting programme covers only those routes outlined on the Island Roads website.
A water leak is the latest blow to Pavilion. A water leak has caused horrendous problems for the Pavilion at the Victoria Recreation Ground in Newport. A problem with the building's water system led to the leak in the run-up to Christmas, damaging the floors and the walls. The building is run by Newport Parish Council after it took over in April 2015, and councillors said they planned to claim on the insurance policy. At a council meeting on Monday, Councillor Peter Whiteman said that the pavilion was still wet and dehumidifiers were in place to deal with the aftermath before work starts next week. This leak has meant the bar has been shut, so the facility is only being partly used, which isn't good, he said. The council spent £22,500 on refurbishing the building in 2015-16 and has spent £11,800 on internal work so far over the 2016-17 period. A number of antisocial behaviour incidents took place on the site last year, including a group of youths setting fire to a litter bin, which led to the installation of CCTV as the parish council's expense.
GP postcode lottery on Isle of Wight. Waiting times to see a doctor vary enormously across the Isle of Wight, with some islanders waiting 3.5 days, while others wait up to 3 weeks. That was the conclusion of a report by Health Watch Isle of Wight, an independent watchdog, released following an increase in feedback about GP surgeries in the last 18 months. A survey sent to all practices in May revealed the mean waiting time for a GP appointment in the west and central areas was 8.4 days, with almost half, 47.4%, facing a wait of between 14 and 21 days. One patient said, "If I want an appointment, I always say it's an emergency even if it isn't, otherwise I have to wait 3 weeks." The area currently has 8 GP vacancies compared to 1 each in the other 2 regions of the Isle of Wight. The North East area saw a mean waiting time of 7.8 days for a GP appointment, with 41.5% of patients waiting 10 to 14 days. Another patient told Health Watch Isle of Wight, "I was told the wait was 2 weeks, so I went to the Beacon instead," while another said, "There were no appointments for my sick child, so I was advised to go to the Beacon." But a third person said there was good access to appointments. The region was the best for the number of same-day GP appointments offered per 1,000 patients. In the South Wight, getting an appointment seems significantly easier, with the average wait just 3.6 days. The number of people waiting 10 to 14 days is 34.9%. One person told Health Watch Isle of Wight, "I have the best surgery for appointments and staff." But another said, "It is difficult to ring at the required times due to the school run."
Most expensive train ride starts in Shanklin. A train journey from the Isle of Wight to Derbyshire has been named the most expensive in the country. The 240-mile journey from Shanklin to Buxton will cost you £501 return, according to travel website British Rail Fares. That makes it about the same as a return flight from Heathrow to Los Angeles, a distance of 5,400 miles, and more expensive than catching a train from Cornwall to Scotland. Passengers who splash out to travel first class to Buxton will have to pay £658. The journey includes services run by Island Line, South West Trains and Northern, as well as the White Link Fast Cat between Ryde and Portsmouth.
A pooled pool team won't pay Visit Isle of Wight bill. Waterside Pool Ryde will not be paying its white bid bill, the Board of Trustees has said. The not-for-profit community swimming pool was handed a bill of nearly £800 for the bid, which sees businesses that benefit from tourism make proportionate contributions to be spent by Visit Isle of Wight on promoting the island. However, Waterside Community Trust, which took over the pool when it was abandoned by the Isle of Wight Council in 2011, claims the pool is an amenity for local people and tourist visitors are welcome but incidental to their aims. In a letter to the county press, the Board of Trustees said, "We are aware Visit Isle of Wight no longer receives funding from central government and the council expects it to pay its way. But our board were appalled to receive a demand for nearly £800, effectively robbing one not-for-profit organisation to fund another. With operational costs of £1,000 per day, we, like many discarded civic amenities, struggle to stay afloat and to invest in much-needed repairs and renewals." A notice at the pool proudly proclaims the Christmas raffle run by our volunteers raised £670. How sad if we have to part with that sum and more to feed Visit Isle of Wight. As a gesture of goodwill, the Board of Waterside Pool voted to make a voluntary donation of £150. The white bid was voted for by a majority of businesses, and those who do not pay could face legal action. David Thornton, Chief Executive of Visit Isle of Wight, said it was only fair everyone paid up. Leisure centres and pools do receive visits from tourists, often feature on town videos and websites, and most are very keen to increase their share of tourist spending so they can improve their profitability and invest in improved facilities and services for locals and visitors alike, Mr Thornton said. "We think the Waterside Pool is in a great position to benefit from the returns of the white bid."
One-way traffic system at Asda Roadworks. Work on St George's Way, Newport, part of the Asda development, is progressing well and should finish in March as planned, the Isle of Wight Council has said. The traffic lights at the exit from Marks and Spencer and Morrison's are being upgraded and will incorporate pedestrian crossing phases. On Monday, work will begin to create new traffic signals at the junction of Shide Road and St George's Way. Installation of the new lights is expected to be completed by Friday, March the 3rd, and will involve minor alterations to the existing layout of the junction and the introduction of a new roundabout. As a result of the works, the short section of Shide Road between St George's Way and Medina Avenue will become one way in an east to west direction, resulting in all traffic travelling east along Shide Road from White Pit Lane turning left and using the one-way system that is already in place. At the same time, traffic leaving Newport will be diverted around the east side of the new roundabout to allow the western half to be built. Access to Newport Football Club will remain open throughout the works. The council said a variety of factors, such as weather and emergency works, could affect the timing of the work, and the programme was subject to change. Updates will be issued as each phase progresses. The council has thanked residents for their patience while the major roadworks are carried out.
Hospice to mark 35th anniversary. Marking its 35th anniversary, the Earl Mountbatten Hospice is celebrating its growth and achievements over the years. The hospice was officially opened in 1982 by the Duchess of Kent after a campaign spearheaded by the now retired Dr. Desmond Murphy. He has vivid memories of the formal opening. Dr. Murphy said, "Most of all, my memory of that visit was of the Duchess working with the patients, chatting to them, meeting them and making them feel really special. It was a very memorable day for me. The overriding feeling was certainly satisfaction and happiness at how the day had gone. From humble beginnings, the hospice now has more than 600 volunteers and raises millions of pounds each year to keep the services running. To help spur on fundraising efforts, the hospice has launched an anniversary badges scheme. Bronze, silver and gold anniversary badges will be awarded to anyone who raises £35, £350 or £3,500 respectively. There will also be an open day at the John Cheverton Centre between 10 a.m. and 1 on Friday, January the 27th. To mark the start of their 35th anniversary year, a photograph with staff and volunteers was taken with help from an Island Roads cherry picker.
Drink and drugs at the centre of death crash. An East Cowes man who died in a car crash in Whippingham Road was affected by alcohol and drugs, the Isle of Wight Coroner's Court heard. Jonathan Legg, aged 46, of Kings Road, was seen by other drivers to be driving his Vauxhall Corsa erratically at about 80 miles per hour just before the crash on March the 1st, 2016. As he rounded a bend, he was seen to lose control of the car and swerve into the oncoming lane, where he hit another car, seriously injuring the driver. Mr. Legg died instantly from injuries sustained in the crash, with a post-mortem revealing the cause of death as a fracture of the spinal column and traumatic spinal injuries. The post-mortem also revealed he was above the drink-drive limit and had cocaine and codeine in his system. Isle of Wight coroner Carolyn Summeray said Mr. Legg had a long and significant history of depression and substance abuse. According to a doctor's report, Mr. Legg had been taking up to 42 codeine tablets a day at one point. He was a deeply troubled man, Mrs. Summeray said. The court heard on the date of the crash Mr. Legg was feeling particularly low because of the recent breakdown of a relationship, but Mrs. Summeray said there was no evidence to suggest he was trying to kill himself. Ian Garside, the driver of the second vehicle, has been unable to walk since the crash, which happened more than 10 months ago. Mr. Garside was in St Mary's Hospital for a month and was still receiving operations to fix leg injuries he received. Mrs. Summeray said Mr. Garside was lucky to be alive, and PC Stephen Wotton of the Forensic Collision Investigation Unit at the Hampshire Constabulary said were it not for the fact he was driving a Land Rover Freelander, the court could have been looking at a double fatality.
And that's all from us for today, so it's goodbye from Madeline.
And it's goodbye from Mike. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good morning, everyone. This is the Isle of Wight County Press for January the 13th, and we begin with a letter. And this is from J. Gibbons of Ryde. No chance. I did not sign the petition, and I cannot raise much enthusiasm for the cause. Fight for the white. There is no part of the country that does not consider itself a special case. If we are going to ask the inhabitants of Redcar, Chigwell and Budley Salterton to subsidise us because we can't afford to live here, we can expect a chorus of, well, live somewhere else then. The government will not produce a Barnett formula for our benefit. They're still trying to get rid of the last one.
Don't leave our church to rot, from Yvonne Wright of Cowes. As it is clearly shown by your article on St Thomas's Church Ryde, life has changed and we must change with it. Sadly, the reality is council taxpayer funds cannot be available in the foreseeable future for such projects, and alternative thinking is required, which will of course upset some, but unfortunately many will not care at all. I believe a purchaser has been looking at this property for a little while, and it is hoped that whatever their plans, they will have some sympathy with the existing building. However, I trust the Isle of Wight Council will not be too inflexible with their terms and conditions, as has happened with other derelict buildings on the island, leaving them as eyesores, which to my mind is an indication of disrespect to the community.
And we have one from Councillor Bob Blizzard of Sandown. As one of 4 councillors who left the Island Independent Group in September 2014, when the administration was failing to live up to the high ideals that it set itself, I am amazed to read the leader apparently blames us for all the difficulties faced by his administration. Most recently, the resignation of Councillor Stevens. I would simply pose the following questions. 1. Are we responsible for Councillor Bacon's failure to communicate effectively with Councillor Stevens, one of his closest colleagues? 2. Are we responsible for Councillor Jordan's decision to drink, drive and then rightly to face the consequences? 3. Are we responsible for Councillor Hillard's decision to throw the towel in as an executive member last year, after having achieved very little? 4. Are we responsible for Councillor Kendall's decision to quit the executive 2 years ago, after his position was made untenable, when reports coming under his portfolio, which he did not support, were approved? It is noted Councillor Kendall has now been recycled as an executive member, but clearly the leader is running out of options. 5. Are we responsible for Councillor Stevens quitting as leader in 2015 in order to launch his always doomed attempt to become the island's MP? Councillor Bacon appears to want to put the blame for his failings as leader anywhere but at his own door. Councillor Stubbings made the understatement of the year when he acknowledged that the administration was, quote, in a real mess. Given this situation, rather than the current lame duck administration of stumbling on until May, it would be far better for Councillor Bacon to stand down and allow the council to appoint an interim leader who could put together an administration made up of the best talents drawn from across the chamber.
Archway, another lost piece of town heritage. The sharp eyes of Bill Shepherd have noticed, with some sadness, the disappearance of yet another piece of old Newport, which needs to be recorded. Until recently, there existed on the north-east side of the Recreation Ground Road an old stone archway. This, it would seem, was an early example of architectural reclamation. It is said to have once been the entrance arch to the ancient and historic Cosham House, which stood until the mid-1800s, where Morrison's supermarket now stands. It has to be admitted that the arch never looked quite right in its transplanted location in Recreation Ground Road, but it has nevertheless become another part of Newport's lost heritage.
And from Geoffrey Manners, Newport, here we go again, regeneration plans for the Isle of Wight. Turn the clock back some 30 years. Similar ideas for Ryde and Newport were being proposed then, and guess what? All plans were scrapped. Landowners, stakeholders, transportation chiefs and seemingly everyone else didn't want to know. No one was prepared to commit capital funding or indeed anything. It couldn't work then and certainly won't work in this present financial climate. Now we get more of the same from different county hall managers, that they have raided archives for futuristic, unworkable, unaffordable pie-in-the-sky projects should come as no surprise to us. Employing officers to think appears a thing of the past. How can you redesign a transport network when you have a loss-making, outdated train service, dilapidated pier and public ticket station areas that resemble a slum? Unless there is a sudden thousands per day surge in people coming to Ryde, perhaps those same thousands that were going to invade the island to view the eighth wonder of the world, Sandown's Dinosaur Isle Museum, forget it. Newport Harbour has been allowed to deteriorate, being stripped and starved of cash by the same people now planning a massive future. For years, every Tuesday, the harbour car park was closed to the public so coaches visiting the market could be accommodated, with no charge being levied for use by coach operators. Money spent to oversee the closure operation with the loss of valuable income. Important dredging plans scrapped, the loss of income from vessels kicked off site. Good practice, sound financial management. Previous harbour plans included a marina facility with a lock-type system because of the tidal movement, with the annual dredging being deemed a necessity. Housing with high-tech industry was also a consideration, with Sea Close Park on the east bank being put forward. As the lock gate system could have caused massive flooding problems for immediate areas, which would have cost absolutely tens of millions to construct anyway, the idea was blown away. So now we have it, 2017. Engage a regeneration director on £98,096 a year. Employer is assistant, a housing manager from Kingston, 77,110. That will get the ball rolling, boys. Anyone else for the gravy train? What really infuriates me is all this futuristic guff from an authority who have ditched services to mainland councils and local parish councils, closed most public lavatories, run out of money, went to court on an iffy school holiday case, lost, and who not so long ago used our money to hush up staggering incompetence by officers who failed to properly oversee the building of a school. Now I question, will these extra expensive officers generate enough new capital to cover their costs? Are there penalty clauses to protect the public's purse in the event of any failure? Could that too be rewarded? Will they be dedicated enough to move to what is expected through their endeavours to be an exciting, vibrant island future? If so, will that be subsidised by us taxpayers? I won't hold my breath. Finally, there is a massive upturn in world and financial finances, allowing unrestricted investment by the private sector, being mindful of our restricted transport to and from mainland England. Who could possibly in their right mind want to come here to invest with this present Isle of Wight Council as partner?
Now, this letter is on the subject of regulation, the press regulation, responding to last week's Weekender County Press. From Laurie Tennant of Cowes. Good morning. You must have been asleep for a very long time, because the evil of press self-regulation is hardly a new debate. After Leveson, it was obvious the press needed to demonstrate accountability, so obvious even Parliament demanded it. Your industry's response was to deny the need for regulation, and instead you established the luncheon club called Ipso. That it is completely supine is demonstrated by its record so far. This is the 2015 figures. Out of 4,000 odd complaints, a mere 8 upheld, and no sanctions. Is this because the press has suddenly become virtuous and innocent? Do turkeys vote for Christmas? Your attempt now to remove a piece of established law, Section 40 of the CCA 2013, confirms that you believe you should be completely free from legal consequences of press activity. No one seriously thinks Impress would be any better, but it does have Section 40 behind it, so your best bet is to revise Ipso and give it some real teeth, i.e. ability to invoke the law, if only as a last resort, after publicity and nominal fines have failed. This is a mess of the press's own making. It behoves you to find a solution credible and acceptable to the public. Now there's an editor's footnote to this letter which says, I can assure Mr. Tennant, I have been awake throughout this thorny debate, which came to prominence in the last fortnight as the consultation period neared an end. We are not free of legal consequences. The county press has been sued for libel 4 times in the last 33 years, to my knowledge. But no one in the regional press would deny the wrongdoings in the past by some sections of the national press. But to my mind, making someone pay legal bills, even if they are not guilty of a crime, goes against the principles of natural justice. Ipso is a rigorous scrutineer of the press, and Sir Alan Moses, its chair, is an experienced judge who holds us to account fearlessly and fairly. Yes, we should be held to account, but not by a quasi-governmental structure that has the potential to protect those with the most to fear from a free press.
And from T. Rowney of Newport. Last autumn I was taken to St Mary's A&E by ambulance. Having only spent one night in St Mary's in 30 years, I was quite apprehensive. As a 72-year-old, the staff from all levels were fantastic. I was kept informed at all stages. They contacted my son, did tea and toast for me because I missed breakfast, and went out of their way to keep me relaxed.
And the letter of the week this week is entitled Food Wastage Costs the Earth, from Rupert Besley of Newport. This is what's really hard to stomach. In 2015, the UK binned £13 billion worth of edible food. That's £470 per household of food wasted. Not peelings and eggshells, but good food. There is no need or excuse for any of this. It is simply a matter of organisation and management, made all the easier these days by fridges and freezers. No one has to buy, serve, or take more than they will get through. It is also a matter of attitude and belief. Food is a precious commodity, unavailable to so many. To waste it is unethical. To bin it a crime. That's what my family were brought up to believe in the time of post-war rationing, and so we throw no food away. There will be plenty others of the same generation and earlier who share this thinking. For the figures to average out as above, this must leave a number of households and of course retail outlets and catering establishments discarding extraordinary amounts and doing untold damage environmentally in the process. UK food waste of 2015 will add in its lifetime 19 million tonnes of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. Avoiding that waste in the first place, and it is possible, would do the same as taking 1 in 4 cars off the road. If you are looking for a New Year's resolution, please consider this.
And from R. Raj of Colborne, on return to our car following a lovely walk at Newtown, one of my family headed for the toilet block. I said, I doubt if they will be open. To my surprise, they were, and everything was clean and fresh with soap, paper towels and hot water. Well done to the National Trust and the person responsible for cleaning. With so many toilets closed or closing, Newtown could become an example of best practice elsewhere.
And for our last letter, from Marietta Heap of Newport. She says, please don't feel lonely. Please don't feel you're alone. We've all felt lonely at some point in life. For some, it's a temporary feeling that we overcome, but for others it lingers and can seriously dent your confidence as well as leave you feeling cut off. If any readers are struggling with loneliness, we at the Oddfellows want to let you know we are here. We are a local membership organisation that's made up of people from all walks of life and ages. We know all too well how many major life events, such as a relationship breakdown, bereavement, redundancy, retirement, declining health, or being a carer, can often lead to a sudden change in circumstances and prove difficult to adjust to. So please don't feel you're alone. We run regular, inexpensive events on the Isle of Wight for people to come along and enjoy some great company. They're nothing formal, just simple opportunities to come together, have a few laughs, and, we hope, forge new friendships along the way. We're a really friendly bunch and would love to welcome you to one of our get-togethers. We're next meeting for 10-pin bowling at Ryde Super Bowl on Monday at 2 p.m. Their Young at Heart deal costs £6.45 for 2 games and a hot drink. We book a lane for experts and one with ramps and bumpers just for fun, so anyone can play, even from a wheelchair. If you'd like to come along, or you'd like to find out what else we have coming up, just give me a ring on 523 115 and give us a ring and get in touch.
And now we have looking back 100 years ago, January the 13th, 1917. The need for potato cultivation was among the most pressing issues. Yarmouth Parish Council met to address the dire shortage of potatoes and how to increase yield. Re-elected to the position of chairman was Lord Holmes, a man whose familiarity with growing potatoes was desperately needed during the time of famine. An evening of entertainment in aid of the Shipwrecked Fishermen and Mariners Royal Society was held at Ventnor Town Hall. According to the County Press report, the performances of songs and dancing received, quote, unmistakable marks of approval.
75 years ago, 1942, a Wootton man was decorated with the Meritorious Service Medal. Mr. William Gilly of New Road was bestowed the honour for his long and highly meritorious service. The retiring Mr. Gilly was already a decorated veteran of India. Shortages of paper during the war not only left the county press very short of pages to print, but also the residents of the island recycling at previously unseen levels. In Ryde alone, the paper drive resulted in 18 tonnes being collected in 2 weeks, with an aim to collect at least 50 tonnes.
And 50 years ago, January the 7th, 1967, for more than a century, steam trains made a significant contribution to the life and development of the island. That era came to an end, however, after the old trains were replaced with electric transport over what little remained of the island rail network at the time. Publicity given to mainland prisoners transferred to the island was criticised by the Isle of Wight Rural District Council. It was suggested that the arrival of prisoners to the island was treated more like that of a foreign dignitary than a criminal. This apparently caused concern, as island residents preferred not to know which high-profile prisoners were being held nearby.
25 years ago. Apparently, in an effort to corroborate claims the island was among the most haunted places in the world, local psychic investigator Sarah Williams claimed to have seen 3 ghosts at an unoccupied building on the outskirts of Bryston. Sarah paid a visit to the building after 2 builders claimed to have heard footsteps and were troubled by a cold and unpleasant atmosphere. 48 firemen battled for more than 2 hours to save a pair of thatched cottages more than 400 years old. The Brystone cottages were badly damaged despite the presence of 8 fire engines called from across the island.
And 10 years ago, January the 12th, 2007, coded letters written by King Charles I while imprisoned in Carisbrooke Castle were finally decoded by Dr. Sarah Pointing of Keele University. The letters, which were of a raunchy nature, were addressed to the stepdaughter of one of his courtiers.
And also 10 years ago, Somerton Middle School pupils. 10 years ago, council and governments putting right the ills of society, stopping war and saving the planet from environmental disaster were some of the hopes of Isle of Wight school children for 2007. A group of pupils from Somerton Middle School, Cowes, echoed some of the pressing issues most youngsters wish to see resolved. Speaking of the war in Iraq, Sean Riddick, 12, said, "It is diabolical and I hope it will get sorted out so no more lives are taken."
And now we have White Memories, heading "Must I Really Do That, Doctor?" by Brian Greening. The study of medicine has come a long way in recent years, although stark similarities are developing to how it was practiced more than 60 years ago. It was in 1952 that the County Press cartoonist Tom Smitch made his acerbic observation of GP surgery waiting times at a time when the development of drugs and treatment techniques was changing apace. We have moved on from the medieval practice of bloodletting and the use of leeches to remove bad blood, and that of giving women horses' saliva to restore lust. Thankfully, too, the old cough cure practice of collecting snails removing their shells and placing them in a porous bag with half a pound of sugar and collecting the juice has long ceased. The hot iron cure for hemorrhoids will not be explored. In 1775, yet another cure for the common cold was published. Sudden changes of the weather during the winter months brought forth coughs and colds that were, it was said, seldom dangerous and easily cured by avoiding solid meats and living sparingly. Frequently sipping warm broth, water gruel, weak rum or a gin toddy and staying indoors as much as possible, especially mornings and evenings, was recommended. If, however, business compelled going outdoors, the prudent should be well clothed. At night, on retiring, a basin of sack whey with 20 to 30 drops of spirits of hartshorn was recommended. According to the advice of the celebrated Dr. Cheney, it was more to be depended upon than any balsamic or pictorial medicines. If the cough was troublesome, a teaspoonful of sugar candy and spermaceti or linseed oil, taken several times a day, would give certain relief. Malt liquors, especially those that were strong, should be avoided, and the body, if constipated, could be kept open by a dose of Daphne's elixir or Glauber's salts. If there was an appearance of fever, 5 to 6 grains of Dr. James's powder, taken at bedtime and repeated if necessary, would be found effectual. I have an old book written much later, around 1870, entitled Till the Doctor Comes. It gave advice to Victorians on the treatment to be followed for various ailments. Foremost in these were suggestions on treating scalds and burns, common in those days, of open ranges and unprotected coal fires. Those suffering from fever or eye or brain disorders were recommended a quiet location, possibly a room to the rear of the house. However, it was stated this room should not be near to a cesspool or pigsty. It lauded the value of our curly-tailed friend to the cottager, but he was not a nice neighbour for the sick room. Floors were to be clean boarded and kept sweet by scrubbing and elbow grease, carpets not being recommended. Chimneys should be kept clear to avoid smoke blowing back into the room. A hair mattress was recommended, but it was recognised cost could be prohibitive. So as an alternative, good clean chaff was suggested as mattress filler. The book went on to say it was a mistake to assume nursing was solely women's work, for the extra strength possessed by a man was often beneficial. There were said to be 5 qualifications required by the nurse, namely sobriety, cleanliness, firmness, gentleness and patience.
The contents of the medicine chest were next discussed, and it was suggested this should always be kept locked. It should also include rolls of old linen, of calico and of flannel, all torn into strips, plus a little lint and sticking plaster, a pair of scissors, some pins and a few large needles that should be ready threaded. Liquids should include castor oil, friar's balsam, turpentine, senna leaves, Epsom salts, a small bottle of laudanum, marked poison, of course, and a pint bottle of linseed oil and lime water. The author advised against keeping simple ointment because it did not keep well, but suggested a little clean lard was to be obtained at the time if needed. A jug showing measures of teaspoons on one side and tablespoons on the other was also suggested, and lastly a feeding cup, as many patients should not be raised, simply kept lying flat. Should a feeding cup not be available, Then a teapot with a small spout was suggested. All no doubt good advice at the time, when doctors charged a fee for visiting the sick. I recall my father, who was a gardener for most of his life, suffering mainly from two ailments: chapped hands and a heavy cold, both attributed to outdoor working. The chapped hands I know he found extremely painful, and whenever he had a heavy cold he would boil up a couple of large onions, and he would place in a bowl and begin by inhaling the vapour given off while having a towel over his head. He would then proceed to eat the onions. The only effect, I believe, was that they made him perspire during the night. This sweating was another Victorian suggestion, but their advice of visiting a Turkish bath was not much use to my father on the Isle of Wight. He worked hard all his life, but was sadly afflicted with Parkinson's disease about a month after retirement. Today, a cure for this and many other ailments still has to be found, and when they do, no doubt another disease will come along and confuse the doctors for another 100 years. Such is life and death.
And this article is accompanied by a 1952 County Press Smitch cartoon, which is very, very amusing and rather like the Giles. There's a group of rather lugubrious looking people waiting to see the doctor, and there's a notice on his door which says, "Don't waste the doctor's time." And a chap is saying, "May I jump the queue, doctor? Because 2 appear to have died of old age and 3 have sitters cramp."
Postcard Talk will shed light on Ireland's past. An invitation has been issued to postcard enthusiasts to see some of the Isle of Wight postcards held in the collections of Carisbrooke Castle Museum and learn more about them. On Tuesday, January the 24th, between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m, Nick Minns will give an insight into the history of the postcard. The session will focus on the museum's collection, most of which relate to the island's topography and history. Postcards are recognised as a historical resource and make a significant contribution to documenting the history of the island. In particular, the afternoon will include a tribute to former museum curator Roy Brinton, who had a significant personal collection of postcards of the Isle of Wight, including an entire album of cards just of Carisbrooke, focusing on, of course, the museum and castle. This album of Carisbrooke cards was given to the museum by Roy Brinton's family, and these will form the basis of a talk by Kate Tiley. There will also be a short tour of the island through other postcards and letter cards given by Roy's family. And for those who like a challenge, the session will close with answers being given to a quiz based upon the identification of 10 mystery cards. Prizes for correct answer sheets will be given. For further details and to book places, call 523 112.
Now we have Charlotte Houghton. A catalyst for island debate. The County Press's trusty filing system reveals it was way back in 1989 that Charlotte Houghton started conversing with the then editor Peter Hurst about the potential of writing a column. History shows it wasn't until 1996 that she actually began a regular slot in the paper, But 21 years later, she has decided to snap her CP quill over her knee and go on to other challenges. Over the years, she has pricked the pompous, ridiculed the ridiculous, and put many an overstuffed politician in his or her place. And she has written much to ponder on serious subjects, such as assisted dying, on which she had strong yet considered views. Yes, she has offended a few over the years, most recently unintentionally those involved with Isle of Wight pride. But equally, a good number of readers have told me how she is our best asset amid a torrent of praise for her writing. So, following only a few years after the tragic death of Keith Newbury, his, quote, lady in the basement, a reference to when his column was above hers on the page, is leaving the below-stairs flat that became a bijou home in a sought-after location. She will be missed by her CP colleagues, and I am sure by readers. We wish her well, and I'm working on a plan to keep up the standard of comment and opinion in the newspaper.
Media benefits are there to see. The thorny subject of social media has been in the news, in brackets fake news, in recent weeks, with allegations flying hither and thither about the veracity of Facebook information, mainly surrounding the USA elections. It is all too dull and complex to debate in a few hundred words, but I would like to consider the more positive side of Facebook. I have some weird and wonderful interests, in brackets cricket, birds, Laurel and Hardy movies, and Manchester City Football Club. And social media has enabled me to connect with like-minded folk around the globe, be it enjoying a rib-tickling clip from Stan and Ollie, or even more hilarious moment of Man City throwing away a match in slapstick fashion despite being the wealthiest club on the planet. I can argue the toss about spin bowling with cricket fans worldwide on the Test Match Special Appreciation Society page, although heaven knows what dear old Johners would make of the language employed by some. Or I can find out, as I did last week, about the arrival of a winter visiting spoonbill at Newtown and Yarmouth on an Isle of Wight bird-watching page. What I am driving at is Facebook and its ilk are not all evil, and the island community has embraced them in many ways. One of my favourite Facebook pages is White Heritage Group, a wonderful local history page which embraces everything from pictures of fantastic old industrial sites to era-defining shots of night spots of the past with flares, Zapata moustaches and tank tops much in evidence. But what makes these pages come alive is the comments. Now, I am well aware, online comments are a mixed blessing, often shedding more heat than light on a subject. However, the interjections on the heritage page are a delight, giving islanders the chance to add to the memories and renew old acquaintances through the ether. So don't damn the new media out of hand. It's not all hate, spite and bile, but it's not a patch on the county press.
And now we have a few articles on the theatrical side of the island. An ex-member of indie folk band Noah and the Whale will be playing a special show at Ventnor Exchange this year. Matt Owens played the bass guitar and provided backing vocals for the band until their split in 2015. He will appear at the intimate venue on February the 8th. The band had 2 top 10 albums, including the platinum-selling Last Night on Earth, and performed on some of the world's biggest stages, including Glastonbury and a sold-out show at London's Royal Albert Hall.
An award-winning violinist is set to come to the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight Symphony Orchestra's next concert at Medina Theatre, Newport, is next Saturday, January the 21st, and will feature soloist Ju Yeon Seo. The Korean-born British violinist is a winner of the prestigious Carl Jenkins Classical Music Award and the Royal College of Music's President Award, presented by the Prince of Wales. She has also performed at the Royal Albert Hall with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra and has appeared live on Classic FM and BBC Radio 3 in tune. Also a composer, Ju Yeon won the coveted title of BBC Guardian Young Composer of the Year in 2005, and her work has been premiered and performed at venues around the UK. The concert will begin at 7:15 p.m.
And little note here, find uncovered slice of history. The first lecture of the year from the Royal Aeronautical Society is set to cover a little-known slice of island history. Until the accidental discovery of a box of glass negatives at a car boot sale, the history of First World War seaplanes at Bembridge Harbour languished in obscurity. The negatives were unearthed around 15 years ago and constituted a significant historical find for both the Isle of Wight and Yeovilton Air Museum. Mainland resident Paul Donnellan discovered the negatives after the box containing them caught his eye. Little did he know about the treasure trove within. He has lent the negatives to the Society for the talk. Junior pilot R.A. Nicholson was responsible for the photographs, numbering around 20, which included pictures of hangars, planes and crew, plus an aerial shot of the base. Former Society curator Dr. Noel Stimson will give a lecture telling the story of the people and aircraft revealed by the photographs. The event is free and will be held at the Isle of Wight College Conference Hall on Thursday, January the 26th at 6 p.m. and is open to members and non-members. For more information, contact Liam Condren at Secretary at AREO Society, IOW Isle of Wight, co.uk.
And a few things coming on at the Shanklin Theatre soon. Tuesday the 31st, Ruby Wax. Saturday the 11th of February, Nathan Carter and his band. And then Friday the 24th of February, Tony Christie. And Wednesday the 22nd of February, Jimmy Germain as Cliff Richard.
Award-winning violinist set to come to the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight Symphony Orchestra's next concert at Medina. Finally, Jazz at the Apollo, Newport Jazz Club presents the Digby Fairweather Quintet. Sunday the 22nd of January 2017, 3 to 5:30 p.m. Ticket prices £12, £5 students, obtainable from 730 601 or 523 879, and on door if available. I wish you all a very happy weekend. Cheerio from Barry.
And goodbye from Jan.
This is a download from the BBC. For more information and our terms of use, go to www.bbc.co.uk/in touch. Tonight, news of a device that makes electronic braille behave more like print. And the spy on the dog, how your guide dog can tell you who's nice and who's not.
I've had a lady who stopped me when I got to the bottom of an escalator once, and she tapped me. I stopped, and she said to me I should apologise to everybody behind me for holding them up. And it's heartbreaking to hear things like that.
But first, modern digital braille equipment is very clever. It can store large amounts of material, including books. You can download print from colleagues or friends so that it comes out as braille. You can write on them too and access your emails and the internet on the most sophisticated ones. But there's one problem. You can only read one line of braille at a time, which is fine if you're just reading text, not so fine if you want to get an overview of something more complex, such as a calendar, say, or complicated maths. But now it seems we're moving closer to a solution to that as well. It's called Canute, after the King, and Ed Rogers is the founder of Bristol Braille Technologies, which is a not-for-profit company. First, Ed, just explain what your company does.
We are trying to develop devices which make learning to read Braille more affordable. So we're trying to radically reduce the entry costs for Braille literacy and the price for readers.
Right, well, I've started to explain this, but you're more the expert. Give us some more detail about why you've done this and what makes this different from what we've got already.
We're trying to make, in the Canute, a machine which is not only more affordable than existing refreshable Braille options, but it is also multiple lines. So on the Canute we have 360 cells of Braille split over 9 lines, which is equivalent of about a third of a page of print Braille. And by doing that, it enables far more types of content to be appreciated better than they would otherwise be on a single line display. And it's also more practical in many circumstances to just distribute something as digital text than it is as paper Braille. As we all know, the size of paper Braille is rather large.
Yeah, so, and this is because if you can only see or feel one line at a time, you can't do what a sighted person would do with print, which is take in a lot of it at a glance.
Yeah, or do what a Brailleist would normally do with paper, which is skim up and down the page.
As I am on this hard Braille script that I'm using.
Yeah, the single line displays have lots of advantages and are very useful in certain regards, but reducing the context of a line isn't helpful, especially for things like maths.
So give us more of an idea. We've mentioned maths. I mean, what are some of the other things that you can do with this that you can't do with just one refreshable line?
Well, when we first took this to Dublin to the NCBI to test it, the National Council for the Blind of Ireland, it suddenly became quite obvious that music was going to be one of the biggest advantages for this. You have tabular data, things like calendars and spreadsheets are something which is really not that convenient on a single line. And of course, more prose and poetry-based things as well also have benefits. You can actually show blank lines, and you can afford to have big, wide open spaces, just as it would be on the print version or the paper Braille version.
Right. Now, it's notoriously difficult to explain a machine like this, particularly when a lot of your audience is blind. I mean, it's sitting in front of me. The first thing that strikes me, it's big. It's much bigger than the digital machine that I use.
Right. I mean, we've bought the 10th prototype of the Canute here, but they will all be larger than your average Braille display, to say the least. So it's a desktop device, which is something which you would keep at home or in your school, and you'd read content which might otherwise you would expect to have on a Braille library, a whole shelf's worth.
Now, if I run my hands across this, somebody reading Braille on the radio is not very interesting. But I mean, I suppose what we should explain is, if I were looking, say, at Braille music, I'd be able to see both what the left hand, or feel what the left hand and the right hand is doing. Would I be able to do more sophisticated things than that?
Right, well, anything that you could do over 9 lines is effectively what this machine can do. It changes page at a time rather than scrolling through text. And you can format it as you like. So something like a month's calendar would fit on one page with the details of the weeks, so that, and it structures the data very differently than if you only got a single line of it. And of course, because it's digital, it's far more convenient than paper for those sorts of things.
So is this the finished article?
No, this is the device which was last tested in New College, Worcester in November, I think, is that right, Sean? Mm-hmm. And we've since built 3 more prototypes which will be running tests soon in Dublin, in London and in Reading. And then we hope to be going to market later this year with a final device. Our target price for the Canute is to try and match the price of a Perkins Brailler.
Which is about 500 or 600 quid?
It's something around 600. I mean, we may not get there initially, but that's what we're aiming for.
Right. Let me bring in Sean Randall, because you mentioned taking it to New College. There's a group called the Braillists looking at this, of which Sean is one, but you also teach at New College in Worcester, Sean, a school for visually impaired students. What do you make of this?
Well, for me, I mean, this is very impressive because apart from the price, which is huge, the big thing, as Ed said, is the structural advantages that people can have with their Braille. One of my recurring themes with students is they don't understand much about visual layout, tables, spreadsheets, anything like that, which they haven't been exposed to if they can't see. To get the concept across is extremely difficult. The idea of below, rather than having things in a line, is something that they struggle with.
Because it's linear, you do a line and then you do another
Precisely,
line and then you do another line.
Even,
and so you mentioned, I mean, you could, because I was thinking of all these things, they're a bit esoteric, but of course, if you mention something like spreadsheets, if somebody's doing just trying to do their accounts, I guess.
Yeah, even when I was a student, going back a decade or more ago, and we were doing exams, the examiners always said, you write your name at the top of every page. And of course, when you're typing in a computer, that's called a header. And unless you print your work out, you don't see that. The header doesn't come into it. So a lot of the students didn't know about headers and footers. It didn't mean anything to them. And so one of the major things is the comprehension of visual layout and how visual relates to text. And I think that's very important.
What did the youngsters think of it from other points of view?
There were a lot of comments, some not so good. Mainly they were concerned with its volume, its speed and weight, because it's quite a big machine, as you've commented already, and it can take a while to flip the page, as it were. And I think we've been spoiled by the current line of Braille machines, which instantly give you the next line.
But you were brought in to make suggestions about how it could be improved, and so are some of the other Braillists. So are there currently things that you're suggesting?
Yes, we've given Ed a sheaf of feedback, and I hope he's found some of it useful.
We've been working on it.
I'm sure you have, yeah. So I'm very, must admit, I was very impressed with the way in which feedback was immediately taken on board and plans put in place to make changes. So that's something we haven't seen.
One thing that does strike me, and Ed has alluded to it, is that you can do all these things with hard, old-fashioned, hard copy Braille. So given that you have, I think, to feed the Braille into the machine on a memory stick at the moment, why not just use hard copy Braille for these things?
Yeah, I mean, the immediate answer to that is, of course, not everyone's got access to an embosser. But if you think about things like magazines and newspapers, which people would normally read and throw away, I think that really rockets up the value of something like this. And if, for example, I'm just talking theoretically, if the RNIB who produce the magazines and Bristol Braille who sell the machines got together and people could get the magazines delivered onto the device, that would do tremendous things for recycling and for the Braille production side of things overnight.
And also, of course, for personal, just people storing Braille in their own house. It's impossible to store more than a few volumes unless you've got a reasonable size house.
My poor postmans, wherever I've lived, you've got old postmen bent double like something out of a war poem because of all the heavy volumes of Braille they've been carrying around to the post
office. Is there
office.
anything else like this available that you know of? I mean, let's be honest, this isn't available yet, but you said you hope it will be by the end of the year. Is anyone else in the same place as you are?
There's no one on the market with multi-line Braille, and certainly none that are promising something at a price like this. There are always a variety of projects attempting this. We've never quite got this far that we're aware of. The important distinction we've tried to put between ourselves and previous projects, which have sometimes let the Braille reading community down, is that we've been testing this publicly for a very long time. We list the meetings on the website. Anyone can come along and join the Braillists group, which runs our testing groups. We're trying to make this as open as possible. We show the machines even when they're not fully built and ready to go, and that's what informs the direction we go in, and is what enabled us to get this far.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. Ed Rogers, thank you very much indeed. Sean Randall, I'd also like your take on this next item as well. Bit of a change of gear, really. When we're out and about on the street, some people are brilliantly helpful to us, some are not. And to be fair, we don't always cover ourselves in glory either. But the problem for us is that, by definition, we can't always judge the circumstances. We don't know about the looks we get. We don't know if the guy who didn't help us was loaded down with a heavy suitcase, all that kind of thing. Well, Amit Patel decided he wanted more information about what was going on around him in these situations. Amit's relatively newly blind, He's an even more recent guide dog owner, and he joins me now. Amit, just explain what you've been doing and what prompted you to do it.
Recently, we put a camera on Kika, the guide dog, just to see what she sees. Because I found doing a commute in the morning, I would have good days and bad days. But on the bad days, I would get other commuters telling me that Kika, the guide dog, has just been hit by someone or been barged out the way, or people are trying to race her to the escalators or trying to get off the train before us. When it's very clear to everybody that, if they give us a few seconds, we're out of their way and they can get on with their lives as normal.
And you've had some fairly nasty things said to you, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I've had a lady who stopped me when I got to the bottom of an escalator once, and she tapped me. I stopped, and she said to me I should apologise to everybody behind me for holding them up. And it's heartbreaking to hear things like that. But the funny thing was, when she did actually say this to us, someone else came up to me and said, "Oh, I overheard what she said. Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, I'm fine," kind of trying to brush it off. But the funny thing is, we actually got to the tube before she did. We actually passed her en route. So we didn't actually hold her up. She probably held me up.
So how does the technical side of this, how does the camera work and where is it positioned?
It's all trial and error. Kika is a shaker, and she loves to shake the moment she gets off the train or gets on the train or before she knows she's going to have to do a long walk. So trying to place the camera on Kika was difficult, but we managed to get it on her harness, kind of giving just above her head, basically, just so everybody can see a Kika eye view is what we call it.
And how do you monitor its results? Because you work with someone, don't you?
My wife. This is a partnership. It all came about by one day someone telling me that she got hit by an umbrella while someone was trying to get past her. And I said to my wife, it'd be great to put a camera on her and actually get her perspective on things. So when we eventually did manage to put the camera on, what we'll do is, if I feel I had an incident when I got home, my wife would just review the footage and we will download the clips onto her Twitter accounts.
How accurate is it? How clear is it? I know you don't know that, but what does your wife say about the signal you get?
Fantastic. So if it's not in the waterproof housing, you've got great audio along with it as well. We find the picture quality is brilliant, absolutely fantastic. But sometimes the camera, when she does her shakes, the camera does move and it might be pointing up in the air. It's all trial and error.
Now, I think you've had one particular case, haven't you, where you've actually used this and in a way used it as evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who live in London, recently London Bridge Station has just reopened on a new site, which we're not very familiar with, not with the new station anyway. So one day Kika got me to the new station and we had to then try and get on the underground, which is still based at the old station. We kind of got halfway down our route and Kika stopped. And she sat down on my foot, which to me means that she doesn't know where she's going or there's nowhere to go. I stood there for a while hoping that a member of staff, someone would hear me or see me, because I could hear the staff members trying to assist everybody else. And eventually I had to call out for help. And when a staff member did actually come over to me and give me assistance, the first thing he said was, "I didn't see you."
But when you monitored this, you saw something different.
When my wife saw the footage, it was obvious that one particular staff member saw us over 10 times. And the funny thing is there were 5-6 staff members standing around me within a couple of metres who all saw me.
Now, you contacted Network Rail about this. What did they say?
They basically said it was out of their hands because the closure was very last minute. The staff were there to help, but they're going to review their training.
Did they apologise?
They did. They did apologise.
I mean, Network Rail confirmed to us that they did apologise to you. They told us that London Bridge was particularly busy on that day in question, and they did have extra staff, but they welcome feedback from passengers, positive or otherwise.
Yeah.
What are you trying to achieve here, Amit?
Do you know what? When this incident happened, it wasn't the start of us putting the camera on. The first time we actually put a camera on Kika, it shows Kika doing a normal route off a train, through a station, up and down the escalators, and that's what we wanted to highlight. We wanted to highlight how wonderful guide dogs are, how much they have to work, And, if you see them working, don't distract them. That's all we wanted to highlight. But we managed to capture this while it was on. And I think it shows that there's a bit more training that's needed in transport, or even just generally, people just need to kind of slow down slightly.
You're putting some of this information online. In fact, we've actually got a clip of Kika's Twitter feed here.
Is there a member of staff anywhere? Hello? Hello? Is there a member of staff? Hello? Sorry, sir. 5 minutes I've been waiting here. I can hear you staff members talking. Seriously, can you not see a guide dog? What do I do? Where do I go? Into the station? Underground.
Well, we can hear you calling out there, and you've explained what happened there. There is a point here, though. Aren't you concerned you're invading people's privacy, putting that up? Presumably, some people can be identified.
Oh, absolutely. But at the end of the day, I'm looking out for my safety. It's hard enough to navigate London when you can see. Try and do it with your eyes shut. It's a whole new world. It's scary. It takes so much confidence just to get out and about. And you kind of rely on the services. You're told that all these services are available for vulnerable passengers. But if they don't work, someone needs to highlight it.
But I suppose there is a danger that you could just antagonise people by doing this, isn't there?
There is. I don't go out of my way half the time. I don't even remember to put the camera on. Some people just see the camera, and they probably see the camera more than they see the guide dog. I have more conversations with people asking me, oh, your dog's wearing a camera. And I'll explain to them why she's wearing a camera, and most of them understand.
And aren't you putting yourself at risk? I mean, you've got a valuable piece of equipment on the dog.
Yeah, that was our biggest concern. That's why, when I'm uncomfortable, it comes off. It's not on there 24/7 on Kika. It's on there just maybe on the busy commutes we do, just to highlight what actually the dog has to go through.
Well, Sean Randall's still with us and has been listening to that. You're totally blind, like Amit and me. What's your reaction to that?
Well, as a guide dog owner myself, I think if I put a camera on my dog, he'd start performing. He likes the limelight. And he's stopped on several occasions because on the school run, children have prostrated themselves in front of him and given him a big cuddle. So if he stops, I can't assume there's nowhere to go. I have to assume there's a child in the way.
But I take it, you get the point of what Amit is.
Oh,
it's
precisely.
Exasperation in a way, isn't it?
Yes. And the number of times people have stopped me to hinder. People assume that they know where you're going better than you do sometimes, and it can be very hard. And this goes along with what other sectors of the society are doing. There are initiatives for older people and vulnerable people to wear cameras and devices that detect when they fall. And I just think that it sounds crazy, outside of the context. If you hear, oh, a man puts a camera on his dog, you sort of think, why is this man a bit mad? But thinking about it a bit more and listening for those few minutes to Amit, I do think that there's method in it. And I do think it's obviously done him a lot of good. And I hope that guide dogs especially can run with this and use the footage.
Sean Randall, Amit Patel, thank you both very much indeed. And we'd really be very interested in listeners' reaction to this, whether you're visually impaired or not. Can it change things, or will it just antagonise people? You can call our action line for 24 hours after this broadcast on 0800 044 044. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, and if you're able to, there's information on our website from where you can also download tonight's and many previous editions of In Touch. From me, Peter White, producer Cheryl Gabriel and the team. Goodbye.